All information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not consider your individual circumstances. You should consider the appropriateness of this information with regards to your individual objectives, financial situation, and needs. Welcome to Sharing More Than the Sheets, a podcast to help you and your partner make better financial and lifestyle decisions so that you can both focus on the things that you love. I'm your host, Michael Khouri, financial planner, green thumb, husband, and just dad. This episode is part of a series where I interview experts on various areas around mental health. If you or someone you know is in crisis and needs help now, call 000 Lifeline on 13 11 14 or Beyond Blue on 1300 22 46 36 anytime for support and advice. As a financial advisor, my job is to talk to people about money, and with money comes goals. And me personally, I don't just talk about money, I talk about other aspects of it because I've learnt over the years through my experience that money is just money, and without goals and without it being tied to something else is just an object. But there's a saying that we've always heard since we were children, is that money doesn't make you happy. And on that point of money and happiness, and some people may disagree with that. Some people might say, I've heard that famous quote of, well, have you ever seen someone ever crying in a Ferrari? And some people may know and feel that money doesn't make them happy, but they still try to get money to make them happy. So as part of this mental health series, I've invited Tatiana DaSilva, a registered psychologist, on this show to talk about this, because I think a lot of it is probably more, psychology based than anything else. And Tatiana, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, Michael.
Would I be right in saying that a lot of it is psychology based? Like it's not, people just have this thing in their mind thinking that money is going to make them happy?
Oh, 100%. And I think, like you were saying, it's what we attribute the significance of money to, right? For a lot of people, it's this idea that, yes, if I have money, I can have the wonderful holidays, and I can have all the things that give me momentary joy. And it's true. Like, we know that those things can give you pleasure and they can give you happiness. But like I said, it's temporary. And there are other things that you need to think about in the context of money, or even beyond money, to really have lasting wellness and happiness.
Yeah, because I think we've all fallen into that trap before. Like, for example, even myself, like there's some stages where something's really, on my mind, and I'll just think, if I just, if I could just buy this one thing, or if I can just get this one thing done, I'll be happy. I won't be this stressed anymore. I'll be relaxed, and I'll have nothing to worry about. But the problem is, the second that happens, there's that instant period of, you can call it dopamine, or that excitement, and then it wears off, and then suddenly, this anxiety or the stress or the thing that was on your mind is replaced by something else. And as far as money's concerned, I'm sure you'd probably agree with this, but it's more of a resource or a tool rather than the actual goal.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and you can see this from like what we understand of like dopamine research, and how the constant pursuit of pleasure actually leads to lower levels of happiness and satisfaction. Right. And so if we're not putting money in the service of something that's more values aligned, it can feel very empty. You often hear of people who have won the lotto, and they talk about, all they dreamed of was winning the lotto, and then they have all this money. And when these people have been followed after the fact, a lot of them are unhappier and worse off positions than they were before they won the money. So we know that money isn't the answer. And in fact, I think it was Jim Carrey that famously said this quote, that he wishes everybody in the world was given $1 million so that they could understand that that's not the answer to those empty feelings that we get sometimes, just by virtue of the human experience, right? Like, it's filled with these highs and these lows, and we're often externalizing our focus to try to avoid feeling that discomfort. And we think it's in things, and we think it's in experiences. And when we're constantly chasing these things, only to discover that attaining them doesn't really take that feeling away.
Yeah, when you talk, I love that you mentioned that quote, because what I think of straight away is, I wish everyone had $1 million so they could see what it feels like. I also think of straight away, it just comes to mind the whole Instagram stuff, the whole social media stuff,
Mm,
where people see someone's life, another person's life on Instagram, for example. They go, oh my God, they've got the perfect life. They must be so happy. They're going out to awesome dinners. They've got such nice cars. They
mm,
do this and everything's amazing. But that person's probably just as depressed or has just as many issues, if not more, as you, or as the other person that doesn't have any of that. So
mm,
it's crazy. And on that point, in this society with social media, we always have these pressures to always be chasing things and looking at others.
mm.
And would you say that has been like a contributing factor to like all these, rising rates of depression, anxiety, suicide as
Mm.
well?
Oh, 100%. The research is well validated on this point right now. We know that with the advent of social media, you can correlate very clearly. There's been a significant spike in levels of depression, anxiety. Suicide rates have been spiking consistently, and at younger and younger rates, we're seeing these rates increase in children, sometimes as young as 7, and there is definitely this culture now of this hustle mentality of constantly chasing this perfect lifestyle that's often summarized in material terms. This idea that you have to have so much money and you have to have like brand clothes and these really fancy holidays. It can't just be, like, so I guess something simple and traditional that we would have found a lot of joy in. Like, it needs to be ostentatious and it needs to be these over the top stuff to satisfy this criteria of a perfect life, and it's having a detrimental impact on people's mental wellness. I have clients at the moment who are relatively young; they're still at the start of their career. Some of them are still studying, who are reporting anxiety around spending money on basic joyful activities because they have this idea that they just have to constantly save and invest, and or they already feel like they're behind when they're only in their early 20s. Um, so there's definitely a lot to be said about this external pressure that's being placed on society to be chasing whatever essentially quite end goals. Like, sometimes when I have clients who will talk, like when we talk about what they're seeking out of treatment, what would give them happiness. Some people will say, like financial security, but the question then becomes, okay, so let's say you have all the money in the world that you feel you need to have a joyous life. What then? Like what will that money then enable you to do? Because I think, like we were saying earlier, money is a resource, and so unless it's being utilized in the service of your values, who you want to be, the kind of life you want to have, what you want to stand for, it can feel very empty very quickly. And, there's that famous saying that comparison is the thief of joy. And we're now living in this, not surprisingly, joyless society in many ways because we're constantly comparing ourselves, particularly on this criteria.
And I mean, as a financial advisor, when I talk about just even that topic, I think there's two parts to it. Like, one part is some people sometimes could be concerned that, they're not going to be able to. I saw a couple last night. They were concerned. Came to me so stressed out, worried that they're not going to be able to retire in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And she just wanted that peace of mind knowing that it was going to be okay. And on that side of things, I was able to educate them. We put some advice together. I showed them what they had to do, and I showed them that, no, they could retire in 10 years on the amount of money they wanted per year. And that made them feel very relaxed because they knew what they had to do. They knew that they basically didn't have to work 20 years or didn't have to keep working for the rest of their lives. And from that side of things, it's the education that helped them. But that isn't always the case, because you mentioned comparing other people, and to some people, they may never have enough money, and some people just keep accumulating when they don't even need to do it. And for me, I've found some people are worse than others. And the reason I say that, when I say worse than others, I just mean that to some people, they don't need much in life. They'll even admit they're simple people. They don't need much. And then you've got others where they need the expensive dinners. They need this, they need that, or they feel like they need it all. what would you, and I know this is probably a topic which we could talk about for hours, but what would you say some people like that? Like, I have a feeling some of it is to do with the way we were brought up, but is there more to it than just somebody being really simple, not really wanting much, not wanting an extravagant wedding, for example, and someone else wanting the bells and whistles and every single thing they can possibly get? These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a free 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au.
And I think it goes back to what I was alluding to before in terms of how clear a person is on their values and what they want to stand for in life. There was a recent study published by the University of Virginia that actually looked at money and the correlation to overall happiness and satisfaction. You may have heard there was a famous, I think it was, I might be getting this wrong, I think it was a Harvard study from a few years back that came out and quite sensationally said that there was a ceiling on how much money a person could make before the life satisfaction levels stopped increasing. I think it was something like $75,000, something like that. And this study from the University of Virginia just kind of looked at that original study, and what they found was, well, that's not actually true. There's definitely, like, more money can definitely lead to some levels of comfort, and, like you were alluding to before, like a sense of security in terms of having basic needs met. But what their study found, which was surprising to them, was that when they looked at a cohort with the exact same level of wealth, so let's say, their net worth was exactly the same, let's say $500,000 each, or $120,000 each, where a group equated success with money, their levels of satisfaction was progressively lower, like significantly lower, as opposed to the other group of the same cohort who had the same level of income, but didn't equate success with money. They equated success with other lifestyle factors like family, close relationships, health, that sort of thing. And I guess that speaks to that point that money as a goal in itself feels very empty, because how much is ever, when you're chasing money and money equals success, how much is enough, right? When is enough enough? You could continue chasing forever. And so, and if you're always chasing, you're not really appreciating what you have. And so that feels really empty and it feels dissatisfying.
And then I guess this is why it's so important to not just to look at goals, because, and what someone's goals are, but to delve even deeper, to look at values.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the first things that I say to people. And you can tease out these, even when we're looking at therapeutic goals for, like, people come in, like, I just want to feel happy. I don't want to feel sad anymore. I don't want to feel anxious anymore. But what would that then enable you to do? Those are the questions that we ask. Because I think when you start connecting with what matters to people, how they want to be behaving, what they want to be standing for, then you give them a lot more control over the quality of their life, right? It's about the things that they're doing, and there are some things that we can do on an individual level, regardless of what's going on, like the qualities of our relationships, investing in friendships. So I think even goal setting, if it's not steeped in values, it can feel very hard to move towards those goals, and it can feel very hard to even get a sense of satisfaction from achieving those goals when you compare it to somebody who has those goals very directly and intrinsically linked to their core values.
So as an example, sometimes I'll talk to someone and they'll say to me, my goal is to have $1 million by, in 10 years. And I'll say, why is it, why $1 million? And as I delve deeper, sometimes I find that they don't really want $1 million. They just think they need $1 million so that they can work less and spend more time with their family. So really their value is to spend more time with family, and family is their value. And I find once we do dig deeper and we find out the reason somebody wants something like that, like in this example, for example, when the person I'm thinking of, we actually ended up working out that if they restructure their budget and manage their money differently, then they can work 1 day a week less in their business now and spend time with the family. And just by asking that question and just by digging deeper and looking at that person's values, they were able to achieve that what they wanted without a $1 million price tag. Would you say that that's an example of clarifying values? And can you give some other examples as well as to what someone can do to try to find this? Because someone might be listening to this saying, I don't know what my values are.
That is the perfect example of a values-based kind of process, and I'm so glad that you gave that example, because it shows how even like you can implement this in your line of work. It's not just confined to the therapy room, because it's true. Like when you're asked people to think about why is this goal important, and it's not just about money, any goal in life really, and you distill it down to what it matters. It often boils down to those things, like having more time with loved ones, having more time to do activities that, like freedom to travel, to do personal development activities, or to invest in hobbies. But if we don't have that awareness or that self-awareness, you can run the risk of chasing the symptom of that goal, and still feel dissatisfied. So there's lots of different ways that a person can try to clarify their values. There's some really great exercises available out there, but one that I often give to people, which may sound a little bit morbid, it's a little bit quirky, but it's based on a therapeutic style of modality, called acceptance and commitment therapy. And it's to get people to write their own eulogy from the perspective of those around them, their loved ones, but not to write what they think people would say or what they expect is realistic for people to be saying about them, but what they would ideally, like ideal case scenario, as as extravagant and out there as they can think of, to write that down from that perspective, what they would like to be have people say about them, and that can really start to give them clues about what matters to them. Often, when I get people to do those exercises, they will start to say things along the line of, "Oh, I know it's about being a good parent, being a good partner, having close friendships, and being reliable and present to my friends, serving my community." It's things like that start getting elicited from exercises like this, and then you can help them recognize, oh, okay, well, if these are the things that matter to you, that help you feel like you're living a really authentic, aligned life, what are some small things that you can implement even now, before you've reached that other goal that we were talking about, even now, to feel like you're already moving in alignment and in authenticity with who you want to be at your core. And it can be very, very powerful.
Yeah,
Even
so
though it's a little bit weird.
it is a bit weird, but it makes sense. Like writing a eulogy, or even just thinking, what do you want? What do you want people to say about you when you're not around anymore? And yeah, that's so powerful, isn't it? Because it's like, it might be, I mean, think about it, right? Like at someone's funeral, no one's going to get up and be like, "Oh, Jeff was a great guy. He drove a really nice Ferrari.
Right.
He let me sit in it once. Loved his house, and it was great at paying for our dinners." No one's going to say that. They're going to. You're right. They're going to go down to the values. They're going to go down to what impact that person had on the lives of others. They're going to go down to, what type of person he or she were. What type of person were they? Were they kind? Were they? So yeah, that's amazing. Like we don't think of that, do we?
No, not really. And it's funny because there's there's a lot of research available as well about the final kind of reflections of people in palliative care, and inevitably the top items on those lists are things to do with families and connections, and I guess missed opportunities like that, from being like they holding themselves back from a place of anxiety, of doing things and being visible. But inevitably, the top 1 to 2 items on these lists are always boil down to the people and the relationships that they had. And in fact, there's a well-known longitudinal study that's been conducted out of Harvard University, where they've been tracking people over an 80-year period and measuring their quality of life, quality of both physical and mental health, as well as some other lifestyle measures. And what this study has been showing, is that above money and all sorts of other measures, including social class, IQ, even genetics, the number one predictor of a satisfying life, of preventing, of good mental health and physical health, is the quality of close relationships.
Yeah, well, and close relationships, being like just some of the things we've mentioned, these are all things that money can't buy. So I think you've answered the question really well as to why money doesn't make people happy. Is because when you look at the values, money doesn't buy values. It's a tool, it's an enabler sometimes. Don't get me wrong, like what we said, but it doesn't buy values. And I think you haven't just hit the nail on the head, Tatiana. I think you've smashed the nail on the head. If anybody wants to get in contact with you, or they want to learn more about what you do, what would you say would be the best way for them to do that?
So there's a couple of ways they can reach out to me. I do have an Instagram page titled Psyche Hub. So that's Psyche Hub, where I'm posting a little bit about these things to do with authenticity, values-based living, spirituality, and psychological concepts. So that's one way to reach out to me. But they can also find me on my practice website, mindscopepsychology.com.au, or my blog, my psychology and spirituality blog, psychehub.com.au.
Again, thank you so much for your time, Tatiana. It's been such an insightful topic, and it's I think for me as a financial advisor, I think I've always thought about this, and I talk to clients about it not all the time, but I'd probably say 80% of the time we talk about these things. But no matter how much you talk about it, there's always so much more to unpack, and there are so many more levels because as humans we're interesting beasts, and we're always the world is changing so much. Lastly, I like to finish all my episodes off with a dad joke, and I hope you're ready for this one.
I love them.
But it's pretty bad, to be honest with you. But what did the cat say after it fell out of the tree? Meouch. So bad.
I love it.
Why this was bad? I actually didn't prepare this one. I literally, as I was talking, I had the book in front of me. This is my son's book. He's got a book on dad jokes he gave me, and I'm literally looking for a good dad joke, and I've bookmarked some of the good ones. Uh-huh. So anyway, it's always good. Ouch.
I love it. Ouch.
But no, again, thank you so much, Tatiana. Have a again, I've had such a good time discussing this, and as I said, it's something we should all listen to and think about regularly. Thank you so much, Michael, for having me. I've loved this opportunity to chat to you. Thanks for joining us on Sharing More Than the Sheets. Please make sure you subscribe to be updated with future episode releases, and feel free to share this episode with any friends or family that you think it might benefit. Please visit us at sharingmorethanthesheets.com.au to submit questions or requests for future podcast topics. These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au.